Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Americans love scenery. We want to see it all, from one coast to the next, Mount Rushmore down to the Everglades. So hop into a Chevy Malibu and take the scenic route. It's the car you knew America could build. There's a place where people count on friendships they can trace back generations, where they can count on the same stool at the coffee shop waiting for them every morning. This place is called Glen Ellen, and you can find it in every bottle of Glen Ellen wine. This is craft brewed Herman Joseph's, the smoothest, easiest drinking specialty beer in the entire solar system. And I believe you'll find drinkable in the dictionary right after don't order a beer you can't drink. Zoingo! Boingo! The freestyle pogo with more boing, more bounce. Bounce further, bounce higher with Zoingo Boingo. To see what makes Arrowhead Mountain Spring water different from those other waters, you have to go back to the source. And with Arrowhead, that means going back a little farther and longer than most. Between security challenged and security strengthened, there's one important word: how. And it is the how that makes all the difference to our nation and our world. Lockheed Martin. We never forget who we're working for. What makes Kraft Singles so good? 2 out of every 3 kids don't get the recommended amount of calcium. But with Kraft Singles, they get a good source of calcium and the taste they love. Kraft Singles. Magic every single time. Throw boring overboard with a new real meal from Long John Silver's. A meal worthy of a plate, just $4.99. Only at Long John Silver's. We may not all be geniuses, but we can all do something smart. Introducing the Hyundai 199 Sonata Lease. It's a smart deal on a really smart car.
I was in a nice part of Israel. I was in Jaffa. It's a beach town. It's incredible. The women are fucking incredible. They kept trying to go, "Can we go to Jerusalem? Can we go to Jerusalem?" I'm like, I know. I went to Catholic school. I know the story. I need like a Hard Rock Jerusalem t-shirt. Jesus died for my sins. All I got was this lousy t-shirt.
Good morning. It's Thursday, Hockey Thursday, April the 3rd, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have the headlines, motivation, Bishop Barron, Ayn Rand, and the Boys of Winter. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Hello, this is Cafe with the song of the day. The song of the day is You Are All I'm After. It's very, very easy to play. You capo the second, you play a G, D, E minor, C, but this is how the beginning starts. Check this out. You are all we will shout from all the rooftops. We will sing from the highest hills. Come along and join with heaven. Let the redeemed of the Lord be filled. Unfathomed, untamed, unbridled, unrestrained. You are the hope that fills my soul. You are all I'm after. You are all I'm after, yeah. Your love is deeper than forgiven by the Son of Love. And I'm living how to lift him up. He could never be praised enough. Jesus made me free. Who the Son sets free is free indeed. Yeah, yeah, I am free. Who the Son sets free is free indeed. Yeah, yeah, I am free. Yeah, yeah, I am free. Let's go!
Thank you. Now the headlines for Thursday, April the 3rd. LA fires. Death toll rises to 30 after human remains found in El Tadina. Body matching description of missing teen found in Oxnard. Couple leaves racist note for waiter at LAX restaurant. IE motorcyclist dragged Inland Empire. Motorcyclist dragged in violent road rage incident caught on video. Ohtani hits walk-off homer on his bobblehead night for Dodgers win. Armed robbery suspect in custody after hours-long standoff with LAPD. Mother and daughter fatally shot in Compton. Trump tariffs on aluminum and steel could raise beer prices. And those were the headlines for Thursday, April the 3rd. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now the political corner.
This is one of the most important days, in my opinion, American history. It's our Declaration of Economic Independence. My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day. April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again. American steelworkers, auto workers, farmers, and skilled craftsmen watched in anguish as foreign leaders have stolen our jobs, foreign cheaters have ransacked our factories, and foreign scavengers have torn apart our once beautiful American dream. Our country and its taxpayers have been ripped off for more than 50 years, but it is not going to happen anymore. We are finally putting America first. In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. We will supercharge our domestic industrial base. We will pry open foreign markets and break down foreign trade barriers. More production at home will mean stronger competition and lower prices. From this day on, we're not going to let anyone tell us that American workers and families cannot have the future that they deserve. We're going to produce the cars and ships, chips, airplanes, minerals, and medicines that we need right here in America. We're going to build our future with American hands, with American heart. This will be indeed the golden age of America.
And that was the political corner. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the patriotic short.
What did a German officer say at the grave of an American general in 1944? In the midst of chaos and war, something amazing happened. Arthur Schmidt, an ardent Nazi, paid his last respects to an American general. During one of the American troops' attempts to break free from encirclement, the unit that was trying to evacuate the dead general's body was surrounded by German soldiers under Arthur Schmidt's command. Schmidt, known for his toughness, gave the order to bury the general with military military honors. This suggestion stunned everyone present, Americans and Germans alike. In the central square, prisoners of war dug a grave. Everything happened without excess, in the silence of grief. The Führer's valiant army respects such courage, said a Nazi officer. A bilingual plaque appeared on the grave, and then Schmidt uttered the words that would go down in history. Fight for Germany as this general fought for his country.
And that was the patriotic short. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, a little bit of motivation.
I get frustrated with humans when somebody's late and they upset. I get frustrated with humans when somebody borrows money from you and they don't pay it back and you upset. I get upset with humans when you go out to eat and they don't bring your food out the way you want your food out and you are so upset and you let them have it, but then you disappoint you when you don't let you have it. You give you a pass. You give you a pass. You are not where you're supposed to be financially and you gave yourself a pass. You know you better than that. You know you should be further in life, but you keep letting you slide. That thing that's holding you back, that thing that's dragging you down, that thing is you.
Your biggest enemy is you. People don't understand it's you against you. The only person that gets in your way is you. Nobody else. It's you.
I need you to confront you because you're the one holding you up. I need you to confront you. I need you to look in the mirror and tell you, you are not going to do me like this no more. You're not going to continue to sabotage me. You're not. You're not going to keep procrastinating. I need you. You're not. You're not a loser. You've just made decisions that have created an environment that feels like it. Go look in the mirror. Take responsibility for where you are and admit to yourself that you are where you are because of decisions that you made, because of weakness that you had, because of your lack of ability to do the hard things when things got hard. That's why you are where you are. And start right now fixing that. Start making better decisions right now, and before you know it, you'll be living a different life. The only person you can control is you. So focus on making yourself who you want to be. Discipline your body. Get up early and go. Get after it, and you will become the person you want to be. And you become that person through one small decision at a time. Become the person who cannot quit. Become the person who can say no to the things that they know they're supposed to say no to. Become the person who makes the right decision regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the hardships, regardless of the pain, regardless of the frustration. If you become that person, you have no limits in your life. There is no stopping that person. You in 3 and you got 6 gears, but you're accustomed to 3, you're accustomed to 4. I challenge you to push it to all the gear you got. I want to see how far I can go. I want to see what I can accomplish. I want to see what I can do, what I can be, what I can have. I want to see. I don't want to see what I think I can do. I don't want to see what I think is possible. I want to see what my life would look like if I didn't count the cost, if I had the mentality that you gotta want it. I'm going to try to be the best that I can be, the strongest, the fastest, the smartest human being that I can become. Better than I was yesterday. Better than people thought I could be. Better than I thought I could be. When you cut this off, I want you to go look yourself in the mirror and I want you to vow. No more excuses. Like from this day forward, I'm not going to be getting pumped up. I'm not just going to be fired up. I'm going to start applying. Because listen to me very closely. The difference between people who talk about it and people who do it is one simple word, application. They hear it and they don't just hear it, they digest it. And when they digest it, boom, they do something with it. I don't need you to learn a lot of stuff this year. I don't need you to learn 40 things this year. If you can learn one thing, I'm talking about learn it. I'm talking about put it deep within. Not you hear it, not you read it, not you see it. If you can give me one principle a month that you own, that becomes a part of who you are, that changes how you think, that changes how you behave. If you can become an executor, if you can execute, you can do the unthinkable. You can make all your milestones become a reality if it stops being a hobby. You doing it when you feel like it. You doing it when you get tired. You doing it on your lunch break. You're not serious. You're not eating it. You're not eating it. You're not dreaming it. It's not hard. Your dreams at night. I'm telling you right now, there are those of you are going to do the unthinkable if you can shut it down. You got to shut the TV down. You got to shut certain people down. You are minimizing right now, and you need to optimize. This is going to be a full commitment to creating the kind of person that can make the right decision even when it's the last thing they want to do. When they're tired, when they're sore, when they're hungry, when they're stressed, when they're frustrated, when they're angry, when the world is crashing down on their shoulders, they will still make the right decision. Your only solution is to become that kind of a person. Start today, and in 365 days you will look back and you will say, that was the day. That was the day that everything changed. That was the day that my life changed. That was the day that my family changed. That was the day my community changed, my state changed, and my country changed. Because I changed. Make that day today.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of meditation. And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the Daily Stoic.
Stick with just the facts. Don't tell yourself anything more than what the initial impressions report. It's been reported to you that someone is speaking badly about you. This is the report. The report wasn't that you've been harmed. I see that my son is sick, but not that his life is at risk. So always stay within your first impressions and don't add to them in your head. This way nothing can happen to you. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 8.49. At first, this can seem like the opposite of everything you've been taught. Don't we cultivate our minds and critical thinking skills precisely so we don't simply accept things at face value? Yes, most of the time. But sometimes this approach can be counterproductive. What a philosopher also has is the ability, as Nietzsche puts it, to stop courageously at the surface and see things in plain, objective form. Nothing more, nothing less. Yes, Stoics were superficial, he said, out of profundity. Today, while other people are getting carried away, that's what you're going to practice. A kind of straightforward pragmatism, seeing things as their initial impressions make them.
And that was the Daily Stoic. And now, His Excellency Bishop Robert Barron.
David Brooks said, and I'll repeat it to you, live your life in a way that you don't seek resume values. You seek eulogy values. A resume is a list of your kind of worldly accomplishments, right? You'll begin to list all the jobs that you've had and all the awards you've received and all the honors you've been given. And that's appropriate. I mean, I've got a resume. Everyone's got a resume. But here's David Brooks's point. When you die and someone goes up to give your eulogy, they're not going to read your resume. Am I right? Think of the funerals you've gone to and someone's talking about the person who's died. They don't read their resume. Rather, what do they tend to talk about? The kind of person he or she was. They don't talk about their external accomplishments. They talk about the quality of their soul. Don't fuss with resume values. I mean, resumes are fine and worldly accomplishments are fine. But don't focus on that. Focus on the eulogy values. What you hope someone will say about you when you're gone. Because they'll talk about the quality of your soul.
And that was His Excellency Bishop Robert Barron. And now, the Ayn Rand thought of the day. Quote, "The battle of philosophers is a battle for man's mind. If you do not understand their theories, you are vulnerable to the worst among them." Unquote. And that's Ayn Rand from the chapter Philosophy Who Needs It, from the book Philosophy Who Needs It. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now from the book Effective Interpersonal Communications, Method 1, Repeat, also known as STICK. The first conversation debate technique I'd like to introduce to you is called the repeat method. This method is so easy to master that you will have probably used it already without realizing it. Once you consciously realize how to use and apply it where you want, you will find it much easier to get people to agree to your opinions and do things the way you want them to. How this method works is that your opponent offers you a response to an argument you gave, and instead of answering his counter-argument directly, you repeat your previous argument, in many cases, literally. Your opponent takes it as if you have given him a brand new argument, and he starts struggling to bring up a new argument to counter your new argument, completely forgetting his previous argument, which technically still stands unanswered. This way, a valid argument of his is wasted without any genuine effort from your side. Let us see an example of this method in action in a debate between two young women, Joanna and Emily, in which one of them uses the repeat method. Both of them are educated, having recently graduated from college, yet the two of them have very different views on how to preserve nature and the environment. This is the debate that occurred when they had a discussion about the subject. More specifically, they debated whether it is a good practice to put out food for city birds or not. Joanna: "Some people put out food crumbs for birds even though it's against the law, and it's certainly not a good idea either, as the birds get used to coming to that area and cause pollution with their droppings, nests, and noise." Emily: "That pollution is negligible. We're caring for nature. That is a good deed in itself and helps promote and prosper nature." Joanna: "We are providing habitats for that kind of nature which thrives on pollution. Crows and rats can't be compared to parrots and squirrels. The pollution they cause is significant and harmful to our health and happiness." Emily: "We should learn to coexist happily. A few bird droppings here and there don't make much difference. The important thing is we are being kind and caring as humans, and, being the intelligent species, we care for all forms of nature." Did you notice? Emily has basically repeated her previous argument. She only used different words to express the same idea. So instead of endeavoring to come up with a new argument, she wasted Joanna's new argument with the same old argument. What happens when you use the repeat method in a debate is that your opponent's brain gets entangled with the obsession to answer whatever you say, and he fails to notice that you have essentially repeated your original point. It's not always possible for a person to focus on everything somebody else is saying. The human brain has more than one function. It is not necessary that someone who's intelligent in one area is also intelligent in another area. Yes. Someone might be an excellent scientist, but not good at understanding other people's emotions and interacting with them. Likewise, not everyone who is intelligent has a great memory. In fact, the stories of the forgetfulness of scientists like Einstein are well known. Even if you think someone is good at remembering things, it might be that they have good long-term memory, but poor short-term memory. Because of this, many people are not able to understand what you are saying quickly enough, and hence are unable to form an appropriate answer. This way, you are able to cheat them of their well-crafted arguments by using this effortless method. Not only can it save you from the trouble of arguing unnecessarily over stupid things, but in a world where almost everybody uses the repeat method, it can prevent you from getting outdated and irrelevant. If you avoid using the repeat method in your debates, you'll feel like a person using an old keypad mobile phone where everybody is using a touchscreen. It's ironic, but it's true. As you can make out from the earlier story, my first impression of repeat was that of a really negative method. It sounds dishonest and a cheat. I've hated lying since childhood, so during these years in my early youth, I've always used the direct method, which we'll read about in more detail in a later chapter. But people would nullify my laborious and well-thought-out arguments without putting in any real effort, simply repeating things we had already discussed, to which I had given satisfactory and sometimes detailed answers. But repeat may not always be a negative method, as we will see further on in this chapter detailing my talk with an apartment manager. It can sometimes be put to really good use. The repeat method is so common that I got really angry that people kept repeating themselves, while I was toiling my brain and coming up with new logical arguments. So I made up my mind to use repeat in my arguments the next time I had a debate with somebody. That time came when I had to talk to the manager where my father owned an apartment. The manager was responsible for the maintenance of the apartments and collected two types of fees from the owners of the apartments. One was a general maintenance fee, and the other was a fee for garbage and garbage collection. My father had bought his apartment, but several months had passed and no one from our family had started living there. The manager called us and told us to pay our pending maintenance and garbage collection charges. My father was abroad at the time, so I went to inform the apartment manager that we'd only pay the maintenance fee and not the garbage collection fee. I told him, I have a request. We haven't stayed here and so haven't given out any garbage. So kindly exempt us from the garbage charges and only take the maintenance fee from us. In a somewhat doubtful tone, he responded, This doesn't occur. There were some other people who also didn't stay here, but they paid the full amount. I then repeated, We haven't stayed here and so haven't given out any garbage, so kindly exempt us from the garbage charges and only take the maintenance fees from us. And he said, Okay, and took the money I was handing him. Did you notice? I just repeated the whole thing I said before, with the exception of, I have a request. And it worked like a charm. I didn't have to think up any additional arguments. But had I not repeated myself, I might well have ended up having to pay him the extra fees. So you need to be stubborn sometimes, and you should not give up your valid beliefs so easily. Here, I would like to emphasize that the repeat method is also known as the stick method. This is because any debate can be potentially endless. Many times your opponent tries to change the topic of discussion when he doesn't have an answer to something. You tell him not to change the topic and to reply to what you said. You stick to the arguments you started, hence the method's name. Sticking to your point is necessary, because if your opponent changes the topic, your arguments will be flushed down the drain, and all your efforts will have been for nothing. You could say that the repeat method is a double-edged sword. On one side, you waste your opponent's arguments. On the other, you tell him to stop wasting yours. By repeating things, you are emphasizing to yourself as much as to the opponent the things you believe in. It's like some people stand in front of the mirror and say to themselves, I am beautiful, I am strong, etc., to convince themselves of their capability. If you don't repeat and emphasize your beliefs, you might end up going with the flow of your opponent. And that was chapter 1, the repeat method, or method 1. And I want to say also on this, where it says double-edged sword, where it kind of goes back and forth, and you may be thinking, why wouldn't my opponent use the same technique on me? Well, he may very well. The point here is to use the tactics and techniques of the left, and this is one of them, against them. And the reason we do that is because the left likes to play things deuces wild. Conservatives are realistic, which means that we can go either way. We can play things straight, or we can play it deuces wild. Either way. The left can only play it deuces wild. So when the left gets defeated at its own game, it's stuck. So that again was method 1, repeat. And tomorrow, method 2, backfire. And that was the book on, let's see here, Effective Interpersonal Communications by Daniel Haider, Haider. Back in a minute. Thank you, Maria. Then Stu.
When others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. I'll leave it there.
That means buy the dip, I think.
I think so.
Lee, what do you think?
Everybody's looking for certainty, and we didn't get it. I think there's even more uncertainty right now. We know what the tariffs are going to be, but I think people aren't certain about their...
And then there's earnings season coming right around the corner. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow. Varney and Company picks it up. Stu, take it away.
Good morning, Maria. Good morning, everyone. The president is all in on tariffs. 10% across the board, 25% on aluminum, steel, and autos, much higher than that on some countries like China, Vietnam, India, South Korea. Here's the response from Wall Street. Hate it. Dow Industrial is likely to be down 1,200 points at the opening bell. That will be 3%. The S&P, 3.7% down. The NASDAQ up maybe 900 points. That is 4.5%. Spectacular declines across the board. Some stock groups are particularly hard hit. First of all, check out the retailers. Wait a minute, the retailers are now up? I thought they were all getting hit. I think we got that chart wrong. Okay, let's move on to Apple. That really is taking an enormous hit. It's down 7.5%, $16 lower, barely above $200 a share. Remember, please, iPads, iPhones, largely made in China, which will get hit with 34% tariffs unless there's some kind of carve-out. Apple really taking it on the chin this morning. You can tell the anxiety by looking at interest rates. There's a flight to the safety of treasuries. The 10-year yield's just over 4%. You're down to 4.02 at the moment. And the 2-year coming in well below 3.8%. You're looking at 3.75. Huge decline in yields and a rise in prices, therefore. Bitcoin down to 81,900. The tariff reaction is rolling in. The Europeans are meeting to consider the tariffs they will respond with. Don't know what they're going to do yet. China wants all tariffs withdrawn. Israel has abolished all tariffs on American products. Economists, they're largely skeptical that the tariffs will produce a new golden age of prosperity. J.P. Morgan thinks a recession is likely. But there are plenty of optimists. White House economist Kevin Hassett expects manufacturing to return to America with a boom in well-paid jobs. And the money to rebuild is flowing in by the trillion. Separately, there's media speculation that Elon Musk has become a political liability for the president, and he's on his way out. Not so, says Trump. Musk dismisses the story as fake news. Clearly, this is a big day in politics and money. That is what we do on this Thursday, April 3rd, 2025.
And that was Stuart Varney. As far as the Elon Musk story is concerned, what I heard yesterday is that Elon Musk was a temporary government employee and that he's leaving after so many weeks. That he was only scheduled to be part of the team for so many weeks. And so what the Trump haters are doing is they know he's on his way out, so now they try to make it seem as though he's being squeezed out, when in reality he was always a temporary employee. So again, and Varney should have known that and should have said that. Nonprofit news now. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, from Saving Beauty, the Byung-Chul Han Corner. The aesthetics of the smooth is also adopted by smartphones. The LG G Flex is even covered with a self-healing skin, which makes any scratch, that is, any trace of an injury, disappear within the shortest of times. It is invulnerable, so to speak. The artificial skin of the smartphone keeps it smooth at all times. It is also flexible and bendable with a slight curvature, so as to perfectly follow the contours of the face and back pocket. This adaptability and absence of resistance are essential characteristics of the aesthetics of the smooth. And that was the Byung-Chul Han Corner, Saving Beauty. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of Maria Bartiromo.
Senator Pat Toomey. Senator, it's great to see you this morning. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me, Maria.
So do you agree with all of that? What is your reaction to what has taken place with that resolution in the Senate?
I wish it were a unanimous vote. I mean, the Republican value has long been for low taxes and a market economy. What President Trump has proposed is actually, if it's carried out, will be probably the largest tax increase on American consumers in the history of the country. And there's no good reason.
And there we go. So this is a former senator from Pennsylvania. The big problem here is that Maria Bartiromo introduces him as though he's a neutral third party, as though he has no skin in the game. And the first question she should have asked him was, hey, Senator, or I don't know why she even addresses him as Senator. He's not a senator. You don't get to keep your title. So that's probably actually the first mistake she makes. Second one is not identifying him in terms of where he stands vis-a-vis Trump. Are you a Trump supporter or are you a Trump hater? And that's what she should have asked him, because then we have context for his remarks. Now, as far as his, he says it's going to be a tax increase. No, it isn't. It's going to be the prices of those items that are coming from foreign countries. Yes, those will go up. But prices for items and things that are made here in the United States are going to stay stable and are going to look better as compared to those made in other countries. That's what it's going to be. So the other thing is that with all these free traders like Rand Paul, who was voting in favor of a resolution to, to do away with tariffs, particularly with Canada, is that they assume he's a libertarian, and most libertarians are just idiots. They have no concept of reality. And the reality is that just because the United States doesn't want to put on tariffs, or somebody like Rand Paul doesn't want tariffs, doesn't mean everybody else in the world isn't going to put on tariffs. Doesn't mean China isn't going to put on tariffs. Doesn't mean Canada and Mexico aren't going to put tariffs on our products. And idiots and assholes like Rand Paul have no answer for that. How do you deal with that? What do you do to get the Canadians and the Mexicans and all these other countries that are putting huge tariffs on our products already, how do you get them to stop doing that? I mean, free trade is a great catchword. It's a great slogan, but that's all it is. The fact of the matter is every country is always going to do what it should and can do to protect its own. The United States is under no obligation and has no mandate to be concerned about the world at large. We need to mind our own business. And the best way to do that is with tariffs. So, but again, in regards to Maria Bartiromo and what she's doing with this interview, she's being dishonest by setting up this individual to be some type of a pseudo-expert and a neutral third party, when as a matter of fact, he is not. He either voted for Trump or he refused to vote for Trump. One of the two, and we don't know which. So when I listen to him speak, I just feel free to ignore him. Back in a minute. And now we pick up where we left off with the Boys of Winter.
Chapter 9. Dream Weavers. Before Eruzione was even done with his dance, Jim Craig was looking at the scoreboard, doing math that required no computation. They've got to get 2 to win, he thought. There were 2 5-minute periods left to play. His job was to keep the puck out of his net. On the bench, as the head rubbing and merriment subsided, Eruzione had a minor panic attack. What if my stick has too big a curve on it? What if the referee checks it and disallows the goal? What if it costs us the victory? There was no reason to think the stick was illegal. Keisler, the referee, had made a visual inspection of the players' sticks on both teams before the game and detected nothing objectionable. It still made Eruzione uneasy. He called over general manager Ralph Jasinski, a 225-pound man, and a pen at the corner of the bench, told him about his concern, and handed him the stick. The general manager did the only thing he could think of. He laid the stick out flat and stood on the blade, trying to flatten it. It probably bounced right back, but it's a good story, Jasinski said. Behind the first time, the Soviets began to play with an urgency they hadn't showed all night. 22 seconds after Eruzioni's goal, Lebedev centered to Krutov, who redirected the puck beautifully to Maltsev, who swept in on goal from the right, hitting the outside of the right post with a flick of a shot, then leaping across the goal mouth to avoid Craig. The goaltender immediately looked over his left shoulder to make sure the puck wasn't in the net. Craig was fiercely territorial and sometimes nasty when an opponent got anywhere near his crease. In the game against Sweden, he whacked forward Per Lundqvist in the face with his stick. In the game against the Soviets at the Garden, Harlamov's face also got in the way of Craig's stick, resulting in a gash that required stitches. If you were in the neighborhood, you were going to feel Jimmy's stick around your ankles, said Gerard Leinen, his high school coach at Oliver Ames, and sometimes well above the ankles. Craig didn't have time to administer frontier justice this time. The Americans were scrambling in their zone, and Krutov found Maltsev again, alone by the left post, a half-open net in front of him. Maltsev, the man who scored the most astonishing goal the U.S. players had ever seen in Madison Square Garden, shot wide. Maltsev looked to center the puck, but as Krutov cruised in front, Ramsey tackled him as if he were a linebacker taking down a ball carrier. Finally, the Americans cleared the zone, but the respite was brief. Vladimir Golikov raced in on the left and backhanded a shot to the near side. Craig blocked it. Alexander Golikov fought for his brother's rebound and crunched Buzz Schneider into the boards. They got tangled in the corner, and Schneider ended up with Golikov's stick, the puck frozen, play whistled dead. The Russian held out his hand to get his stick back. The normally good-natured Schneider tossed it on the ice and skated away. That was my Kodak moment, Schneider said. Maybe all those years of getting pounded by those guys finally took its toll. Just under 8 minutes remained. The U.S. defensemen were dropping to the ice at every chance to stop the puck from even getting to Craig. Ramsey met Harlamov along the boards and flattened him, the Russian's red helmet slamming into the ice, maybe the hardest hit of the night. Fetisov teed up from the left point, but Morrow went down and smothered the shot. Alexander Golikov sped in on the left side and fired from the top of the left circle, way wide. Kazatanov launched another shot from the point, and Craig gloved it. Petrov came down, saw a lineup of 4 white shirts at the blue line, and cranked a slap shot from 65 feet. Craig kicked it away with his right skate. Play your game, Brooks kept telling his players as he paced behind them on the bench. He said the words from the side of his mouth. For all his demands on the players for all those months, he was a different person when he managed a game behind the bench, a thin-lipped general who exuded confidence and control and rarely lost his cool. The Finns, and especially the Canadians, had gone up on the Russians, then retreated into a defensive shell and gotten pummeled for their trouble. The Soviets scored 4 times in 15 minutes in the third period against the Canadians, Mikhailov and Vladimir Golikov getting 2 goals apiece. The Russians won 6-4. Letting them break out, conceding center ice, was a recipe for disaster. Play your game, Brooks said. The USA chants filled the field house over and over. Nagabods kept close track of the stopwatch, and the Americans kept to their short shifts. Kaisla was struck by the results. The U.S. team skated the whole time, the same speed from the beginning to the end, he said. They never slowed down. 5 minutes remained. Heeding Eruzioni's caution, Schneider switched to a straighter stick and took his shift. You don't want to take any chances, he said. He carried the puck through center, Krutov hounding him. Schneider shot it into the Soviet zone. Lebedev controlled the puck, but his cross-ice pass bounced off the boards, and Pavlich picked it up, skated in a tight circle as if he were back on Ely Lake, and snapped a pass to Schneider in front. It didn't connect, but the United States was doing what Brooks had urged them to do. They were not sitting back. After Harrington scrambled with Vasiliev along the boards and the puck popped over the glass, Vladimir Golikov won the draw, and Makarov came down the right side and backhanded it right through the crease. At the U.S. blue line, Harrington settled a bouncing puck with his left hand, squeezed between 2 red sweaters, swept down the left side into the middle, and wristed a shot on goal, Pavlich and Schneider circling behind him, cone heads in motion, just as their coach had taught them. Mishkin juggled it, but held on. The U.S. players tried to heed Brooks's words and think only about playing, not the clock, but at times it felt almost impossible. This wasn't baseball, a competition beyond the boundaries of time. Every tick was their ally. Eruzioni had seen enough of the Russians to know they were completely capable of a 3 or 4 goal binge. Let's get this game over with, he thought. In goal, Craig was yapping more than ever. For most of the game, he was catching the puck, covering up, stopping play to give his defense time to get settled, get a breather. Now he was catching and releasing like a fisherman, holding on to nothing, shouting to the defense to keep the puck alive, keep the clock ticking, keep the Russians from having a chance to regroup. Like a quarterback or a point guard, he was managing the clock from his crease. 3 minutes, 23 seconds remained. Petrov and Harlamov worked a give and go in the U.S. zone, but Petrov lost the puck off his skate. As Mikhailov tried to center it, Baker stole the puck and skated away from him, up ice. The Soviets themselves were scattered now, and time was getting short. Tikhonov stayed with his number 1 line for 60 seconds, 75, the shift from hell. The U.S. bench started to keep an eye on Mishkin, wondering when he would vacate the cage to give the Soviets 6 skaters. The clock moved under 2 minutes. The Soviets iced the puck twice, trying to hit Makarov and Golikov as they circled in center ice. Petrov flipped the puck harmlessly in on Craig with 80 seconds to play, but the Soviets couldn't keep it in the U.S. zone. The symphonic passing game was nowhere to be seen. There was no build-up, no tic-tac-toe attack. The Russians were taking wild home run swings. We were panicking. We were stiff, Starikov said. On a face-off just outside the U.S. blue line, Johnson beat Petrov and got the puck to Ramsey, who shot it in the Soviet zone. The noise was deafening. 1 minute remained. In the U.S. goal, Craig kept talking, imploring his defense, push the puck, don't freeze it up, keep the clock moving. Breaking out of his zone, Petrov backhanded a pass along the boards to a streaking Harlamov, who lost control as he crossed center ice, the puck skidding ahead. Ramsey tried to clear, but Mikhailov recovered and carried behind the net, Silk diving headlong to try to block his passing lane, and Ramsey doing likewise, not even 10 feet away. No effort was being spared. Mikhailov found a clear lane amid the sprawling bodies and centered to Petrov, but his backhand was wide. Mishkin was still in his net. The American players were shocked. You have to go with the extra skater. The tactic was why the Americans were even in this position. When Baker scored to tie Sweden, there were 6 U.S. skaters and no goaltender. We never did 6-on-5. We never even had that situation in practice, Starikov said. Tikhonov just didn't believe in it. Mikhailov dug the puck out of the corner and pushed it to Bilyardinov at the point. He shot it back down, and Morrow and Silk nudged it along the boards, out of the zone. With 33 seconds left, a stride outside the blue line, Petrov drove another slap shot, Craig kicking it out with his right skate, stumbling a bit as he went. It came out, and Harlamov flipped the puck back in with 19 seconds remaining. Johnson got to it by the end line. He passed it behind the net toward Ramsey, who crashed into Bilyardinov, who had charged in from the point. McClanahan hustled into the corner, beat Harlamov to the puck, backhanded it along the end boards to Johnson, who beat Mikhailov to it and slid it behind the net to Morrow. When the Soviets needed the puck more than they had ever needed it, they couldn't get it. There was no question which team had the freshest legs. With under 10 seconds to play, Morrow lofted the puck along the sideboards to clear it. It hit Silk in the arm about 15 feet up ice. The countdown began. 5, 4, 3... Silk, who was out there just as Jack Parker had predicted, took a swipe at clearing the puck, and then Johnson dug in and pushed it out of the U.S. zone. In the ABC booth, Ken Dryden said, "It's over!" just a second before Al Michaels was shouting, "Do you believe in miracles? Yes!" The horn sounded. Pandemonium followed, the entire bench running, dancing, jumping, an almost comical conga line of jubilation, the destination, Jim Craig. Dave Christian, with his Christian Brothers stick held aloft, was near the head of the line, and Buzz Schneider, arms and legs spread as if he were in mid-jumping jack, was right behind. In an instant, Craig disappeared beneath a patriotic scrum of teammates about 5 feet from the left post. Flags were waving everywhere, and the roar wouldn't stop. People in the building said it was the loudest and most joyful sports sound they had ever heard. Jack O'Callahan sat atop a prone Mike Ramsey, arms overhead and a toothless grin for the world to see, even as Ramsey flailed deliriously at his stomach and chest. The 4 BU players on the team, Craig, Eruzione, O'Callahan, and Silk, had an unscripted reunion near the bench, a terrier group hug. The players kept looking for teammates they hadn't embraced yet, the configurations of ecstasy shifting over and over. Assistant coach Craig Patrick was out there in the middle of it, and so were Doc Nagabods and general manager Ralph Jasinski. The head coach was not. He was gone within seconds of the sounding of the horn. After throwing both arms overhead and doing a tiny pirouette and punching the air with an emphatic left fist, Brooks walked straight off the bench, turned right into the runway, got patted on the back by weepy state troopers, and went back into locker room 5. 10 feet from where he had stood 2.5 hours earlier and told his team they were meant to be there, Herb Brooks locked himself inside an orange toilet stall and cried. On their own blue line, a cluster of Russians stood and took in the spectacle at the other end of the ice, a mixture of amusement and disbelief on their faces. Alexander Golikov was smiling. His brother Vladimir, chin propped on his stick, wasn't. Vyacheslav Fetisov, future NHL star, looked as stone-faced as a Kremlin guard. I just watched how they were, young guys, smiling over what they do on the ice, Makarov, another future NHLer, said. We won lots of tournaments all over the world, and we never do that. It was more than hockey for those guys. We were happy for them. In his own way, Makarov's reaction brought to mind the actions of Soviet captain Nikolai Sologubov 20 years earlier in Squaw Valley. After losing to the United States in the semifinals, Sologubov made an impromptu visit to the U.S. team between the second and third periods of the gold medal game against the Czechs and broke into a locker room pantomime, telling the Americans they needed to take oxygen. It was a sporting gesture and dovetailed nicely with the Soviets' own agenda, since any result was preferable to a victory by their bitter rivals from Czechoslovakia. 6 third-period goals later, the Americans had their first hockey gold medal. And now they were 1 victory away from their second. The teams lined up and shook hands. For 10 days, Jim Craig had made a point of studying Tretiak whenever he saw him in the village or after practice. He looked intently at his face. I'd heard so much about him. I wanted to get a feel for who this person was. I think you can always tell a little something about a person when you look at their face, Craig said. On the handshake line, there was Tretiak's face again, except now it looked blank and distant. When the last Russian hand had been shaken, Craig did a hop and a little spin, a huge smile on his unshaven face. Mikhailov went to the referee's dressing room and sought out Kaisla. Mikhailov shook his hand. Thank you, the Russian captain said. Everything was correct. You did good job. He returned to the Soviet locker room, where an irate Tikhonov jabbed a finger in the face of 4 of the biggest stars in the hockey world, Tretiak, Harlamov, Petrov, and Mikhailov, and told them one by one, "This is your loss! This is your loss!" Later, in his room in the Olympic Village, Tretiak spent a long time by himself, head in his hands. He had come to hate the room and the whole village. It felt as if it were dropped in the middle of the woods, with no pulse to it, no Olympic energy or sense of place. Vasiliev went shopping for moon boots with some teammates and actually pulled out a champagne bottle and said, "Let's drink to the Americans." Zhluktov joked, "Yes, we can drink to the Americans. If it's the Czechs who win, then we jump in Lake Placid." Helmut Balderis made it a point to find Brooks and congratulate him, doing it within view of Tikhonov. Nagabads, Balderis' fellow Latvian, urged him not to do this in front of his coach. "He can go shit in his pants," Balderis said of Tikhonov, his long-running tormentor. Vladimir Luchenko, the previously exiled star, watched the U.S. game at home in his Moscow apartment, staring vacantly at a small black-and-white television until the very end, which came about 2:30 in the morning Moscow time. It was hard to know what felt worse, that his teammates lost or that he was unable to do a thing about it. If he were a more vindictive sort, Luchenko probably would have found some pleasure in the defeat. But these were Luchenko's teammates, his comrades, the guys he grew up with and played with all over the world. How could he take joy from their hurt? Years later, Luchenko would move to the United States with his wife and daughters, settling in Massachusetts, where he started a hockey clinic and coached kids alongside Jim Craig. They would become friends, and they would both laugh when Craig would tell Luchenko that he had made it possible for him to be an Olympic hero by not being there. But there was no joking about it in the winter of 1980. It was heartbreaking, Luchenko said. Several weeks after departing Lake Placid, Tikhonov brought Luchenko back to the team, and the Soviets won a major international tournament in Sweden. It was too late. The Olympics were over, Luchenko said. In the locker room, a couple of Communist Party bureaucrats came up to Starikov and shook their heads. "You guys just made one of the biggest mistakes of your lives," one of them said. 10 years from now, 20 years, everyone will still remember this game." "They were right," Starikov said. Mark Johnson had worn his knockoff Soviet sweaters for years and had his first exposure to the real Russians in the 1975 World Championships in Dusseldorf, Germany. He was awestruck at their skating and creativity. He took special note of the guys whose jerseys he wore. Now, 5 years later, Johnson was randomly selected to be drug tested after the United States beat the Russians. He walked into a little room off a corridor beneath the fieldhouse stands, and sitting there waiting were Harlamov and Mikhailov, the Russian designees. The language barrier might as well have been an iron curtain, but the Russians didn't need English to be gracious. Johnson thought about all those private screenings of the Summit Series, all the Sundays when he wore their jerseys, a boy impersonating world-class hockey players. His mind flickered happily with reminiscences of his life in the sport and where it had already taken him at age 22. There was one game left in his amateur career. It would be his last drug test as an amateur, and his favorite one. In the locker room, the team broke into a spontaneous chorus of "God Bless America," filling in the words they couldn't remember with hums and whistles. President Carter called, and Jack O'Callahan joked that Brooks probably put him on hold. Mike Moran, U.S. press officer, dispatched 3 attachés to the locker room to try to get Craig, Eruzione, Johnson, someone, to meet with the world's press per Olympic requirements. All 3 attachés were summarily rebuffed by Brooks, who wasn't about to veer off his no-interview course now. "The sports moment of the century, and we couldn't get a single player to the interview room," Moran said. Main Street in Lake Placid had turned into Miracle Boulevard, thick with revelers, the USA, USA chant cascading from one end of town to the other. Craig and Eruzione and their fathers walked through the snow and the mayhem, ABC's Jim Lampley in tow. A bunch of players and their families went up the hill, the same hill Brooks had them run in full gear, to the Holiday Inn. In the hotel bar, they watched ABC's taped delay broadcast. The United States won again. People put down $10 apiece and closed down the bar. A few hundred yards down Main Street, Mirror Lake Liquors sold out of champagne and had to bolt the doors to stop any more customers from coming in. "It was a retailer's dream," said Jim Shea, a 1964 Olympian who was working in the store that night and would later own it. Amid the iron mines of Virginia, Minnesota, Mary Harrington, mother of Ba, listened on the radio in the family room. Her husband, Charles, caught all the action he could on a scratchy transistor radio in the cab of his locomotive as he hauled iron ore from the mines. Neighbors descended on the Harringtons' new colonial for a Friday night party. Whether the Harringtons wanted them or not, they did. In Winthrop, Massachusetts, the lawn in front of the Eruzione home on Pleasant Street was as crowded as a Cape Cod beach on the 4th of July. Before long, Eruzioni's picture would be on the cover of the Winthrop phone book, and Eruzioni would be the recipient of 2 marriage proposals, and for the first time in his life, people were actually pronouncing his name right. On the Iron Range, from Babbitt to Grand Rapids, and even in Embarrass, the nation's cold spot, people ran outside and hollered and shot off guns. In the Mediterranean Sea, the USS Nimitz, an aircraft carrier, flashed the score to a Soviet intelligence ship that was nearby. Chris Ortloff, the director of ceremonies and awards for the games, had to leave the field house with 10 minutes to go, an ill-timed medal ceremony requiring his presence. The ceremony, held on Mirror Lake, wound up being delayed because the only thing people were paying attention to was the hockey game. Ortloff was listening on the radio as he sat in an Econoline van when he spotted Sergei Pavlov, the chief of mission for the Soviet Union. Ortloff invited Pavlov to warm up in the van and listen to the end of the game with him. As time got short, Pavlov clasped his hands together. "Are you praying?" Ortloff asked. "Don't tell Brezhnev," Pavlov replied. They both smiled. When the game ended, they shook hands. "Congratulations," Pavlov said. 2 days after the loss to the United States, the Soviet Union scored 9 times in the first 35 minutes and crushed the Swedes 9-2. The Soviets would not lose another official international game for 5 years. They would not lose to the Americans again for 11 years and would beat the U.S. teams by a total score of 38-9 in their next 5 meetings in World Championship play. But the future domination came with no rewind mechanism, no clause that could undo what happened on Friday night, February 22nd, 1980. It was the 30th anniversary of the film debut of Walt Disney's Cinderella. Maybe it figured. No unbiased observer could credibly claim that the United States was the better team in Lake Placid, or even that it played the stronger game, a difficult argument to support when you were outshot 39-16. What the Americans did do, however, was to score more goals, 4-3, and that is enough to be called the winner. They didn't concern themselves with the skill and experience and international pedigree they were giving up. They simply skated and hit and never relented, and they got 60 minutes of stubborn brilliance from Jim Craig. It was the greatest game he ever played, before or since, said Harry Sinden, general manager of the Boston Bruins, who had traded for Craig before 1980 was over. Rob McClanahan put it well in a newspaper interview for the 10th anniversary of the victory. "We were just naive college punks," he said. The naivete spawned a boldness to shoot for a completely far-fetched goal. You never know if you never try. They put aside their regional issues and fed off their unanimous abhorrence of how they were treated and became a whole that was something to behold. Or as Sergei Makarov said, their eyes were burning. They were team. George F. Kennan, Russian scholar and Cold War expert, once said, "Heroism is endurance for one moment more." And indeed, it was ultimately the U.S. players' endurance that made them so endearing and so heroic. They endured their coach and his ceaseless demands and mind games. They endured his Herbies. They endured their own doubts and insecurities and youthfulness and the almost universal conviction that they would be doing swell to get the bronze. They kept falling behind. They kept coming back. Each time they did, each time they lined up before leaving the ice and raised their sticks in salute to the crowd on one side of the rink and then the other, thanking their fast-growing legion of fans for their support, they were more and more becoming poster boys for the American dream. Homegrown proof of what's possible if you work hard and stay together. You watched them play and you were struck by the power of a simple, single thought. Hey, we really can still do it. In a profoundly pessimistic time, they brought hope. In a time of malaise, they brought spunk and spirit. The hostages and gas lines and the rolling Russian tanks were fairly flogging the American psyche until Phil Verkota and Mark Pavelich and Mike Ramsey and the rest of them started flogging back. And the best part was that they didn't even know they were doing it. They thought they were just trying to win hockey games. The most storied U.S. Olympic hockey victory in history also turned out to be the most serendipitous. The winning goal of the Russia game was scored by a captain who had almost been cut on a broken play, off the wrong foot. 2 of the 3 goals that preceded it were the work of hard work and hustle, but also of bounces that bordered on the karmic. The opponent was arguably as great a hockey team as has ever been assembled. The coach was not the first choice for the job, and maybe not even the second. But he was a man as daring as he was detached, and it's hard to say which was bolder, reprogramming his players to learn an entirely different style of hockey in 7 months, or uniting a team rife with geographical factions by making himself the common enemy. A little bit of the miracle of Lake Placid died with Herbert Paul Brooks on the hot, hard asphalt of Interstate 35 in Forest Lake, Minnesota on August 11th, 2003. He was, after all, the architect of it. But even amid the tears and the sorrow as the team gathered for its last reunion in the Cathedral of St. Paul 5 days later, there somehow remained the same sense of possibility that the team had so powerfully come to symbolize 25 years before. To see the honorary pallbearers raising their sticks as his body was carried down the steps, the salute this time for the coach, was to celebrate Herb Brooks's passion for the game and his quietly held conviction that in one game, on one night, his team of overmatched and underaged kids could beat the best team in the world. It was to believe again in the nation's capacity for greatness, in the collective power of a true team, foibles and frailties notwithstanding. For the cover of the program that was handed out before the service, the Brooks family chose not a formal portrait or an image of Brooks as 66-year-old grandfather or family man, but a close-up photo of a 42-year-old coach on the ice in Lake Placid, USA warm-up suit in place, whistle around his neck, an uncharacteristic softness to his smiling face. The miracle was still before him. Hope was high. 6 months after the funeral service, the NHL All-Star Game was played in Herb Brooks' hometown. A statue of Brooks was unveiled outside the Excel Center, and many of the 1980 team members were on hand for the occasion, among them Jim Craig. The day before the game, Dan Brooks, Herb's son, met Jim Craig at his hotel, and they drove together to the cemetery where Herb Brooks was laid to rest. Dan Brooks brought an extra pair of boots, and the two of them, the coach's son and the coach's goalie, tromped through knee-high snow and quiet and unspoiled whiteness. They shoveled snow off the graves in the family plot, and when they finally found Herb's gravestone, the headstone hadn't been completed. Jim Craig stood at the foot of it with Dan Brooks, and then he had a conversation with his coach. Jim Craig thanked Herb Brooks for being hard on him, and for making him a better goaltender and a better person, and for preparing him for the greatest 3 periods of his hockey life. He thanked him for believing in him. Mostly, he thanked Herb Brooks for a night in the Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York when snow fell and the Olympic field house throbbed, and whether you were in the goal, or on the ice, or in the seats, or at home, you came away feeling that greatness wasn't a realm strictly for the superhuman, remote and unattainable, but rather something much closer, real, and reachable. Something within every one of us.
And that was Chapter 9 of The Boys of Winter. The Untold Story of a Coach, a Dream, and the 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team by Wayne Coffey and read by Kirby Hayborn. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative of the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there and reminding you that determinism is a choice.
Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.